We're going to build a knockoff of the Unix command line tool WC written in Go. So a couple weeks ago, I found out about this website called CodingChallenges.fyi, and they have a bunch of challenges. There's an email subscription list thing where the creator of this will send out new challenges as they get published. And I thought this would be a fun one to start with, mainly because this is actually a really simple one in Go. So let's kind of take a look at this and get started. So if you're unfamiliar with the WC tool, you can pass in a text file and it will count things. I think WC means word count, but I could be wrong on that. Okay, this site has a list of steps, so you'd follow these steps. The main one here is that we want to download this text file and save it. I've already done that. And then in this step, for step 1, your goal would be to write a simple version of WC. So you'd support the -C option, which outputs the number of bytes in a file. You could take these in a step-by-step approach. Honestly, this is a simple enough program that it might make sense to just tackle them all at once. So I think that's what we're going to do. So you get another flag for step 2, which is L, which is the line count. Step 3 is W, which is the word count. And then step 4 is M, which is the number of characters. And then step 5 is default option. So the default option is, if you don't provide any, essentially run with -C, -L, and -W. And then reading from standard input, if no file name is specified. So I might leave that one and kind of challenge you to pursue that as well. But let's go ahead and get started, right? So I'm going to create a directory called go WC. Okay, it's empty. We're going to say go mod init github.com/bradseifert/go WC. That'll create a go mod. In theory, we might not even need that. We might not end up using any dependencies. In fact, I don't think we should need to. So I'm going to create a main.go. We'll go ahead and fire this up in NeoVim. Okay, so we have a package. It's going to be main. We're going to have a main function, like so. And then what we need to do is start working with some flags. So we have the C flag, and I'm going to use the flag package here. And the flag will be C, the default value will be false, and then it will be used to output the number of bytes. We also have the L flag, so we'll do flag.bool, L, false, output the number of lines. And then we have W, flag, bool, this one's W, also default to false, output the number of words. We have one more. What was the other one that I'm missing? Step 4 is M. So we have the M flag, which is flag.bool, M, false, output the number of, what is this one? Step 4, number of characters. Sorry, I haven't used the WC tool in depth in a very long time. Okay, so once we do that, we need to make sure we call flag.parse, or else it won't actually parse them. And then in the spirit of solving a simpler problem first, we're going to go ahead and take in the file from a file path that's provided as an argument. So if length of os.args is less than 2, the first arg will always be the program, and then the second will be the file in this case. We'll just go ahead and panic. Normally you wouldn't want to panic with your Go code. I feel obligated to say that. But for this little simple CLI, it's probably fine to go ahead and panic, since we can't really do anything if you're not passing in the file path to parse. Okay, we can get that file path now, so we can say os.args, and then we want to grab the last one, so we can do length of os.args -1. The reason I'm doing this is I'm not sure if these flags, when they get parsed, if they get removed from os args. I think they might still be counted as args for our command, and the last one will be the file. I guess I should mention that maybe this isn't a 2-spec WC tool, considered a knockoff. but it solves the same purpose, or it will solve the same purpose when we're finished. So now we need to load that file. So we can use os.open, and then we can pass in that file path. What we need to do is defer file.close, and then we want to check if there's an error, right? So if error is not equal to nil, then we can probably panic again. So in this case, unable to open the provided file path. Okay, we've already deferred. So I think the approach that I'm going to take here is I'm going to set up a couple variables that are going to be used to store ints. So we have bytes, we have lines, we have words, and then we have characters. That's right. And they're all going to be an int. So since we're setting the type to int, they'll default to 0, which we'll use later. And we basically want to check if these flags are true. So if C is equal to true, then we want to do something, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to leverage a buffered IO scanner. New scanner. Oops, sorry about that. New scanner. And we're going to pass in the file. And then we're going to say scanner.split. And we want to pass in buffio dot scan C is bytes, so we want to scan bytes. And then what we want to do here is simply say for scanner dot scan bytes plus plus. And this is actually going to be really similar across all of these. So if we want to go ahead and grab these, we can yank that. We can go +6. And paste, and paste, and paste. And there's obviously a really good refactoring that we could do here as well. And we might do that, or I might let you run with that on your own if you'd like. So the next one would be W, which if we go to the top of the file, W is words, and then we have lines and characters. So let's head back to the bottom. Okay, so if we have W and then we want to scan words, and then this will become words, and then we have L for lines. Oops, scan lines. Bytes becomes lines here, and then our C becomes, I think it was M is the last one, variable M, that looks correct. And then this one will be scan runes for us. We'll want to use runes since we're scanning characters. And then this would then become characters. Okay. This should take care of all of our scanning. This clearly isn't maybe the most optimized solution. We're creating we're potentially creating 4 different scanners. So you could take a different approach here where you try to parse everything as the lowest common denominator, which would be bytes in this case. And then you look for things like line breaks to determine if there are lines. Again, I'm not super worried about the performance. I'm more worried about getting something that solves the problem. And if you want to refactor this to make it more performant, you totally can. And you should. Like, if we look at our lines here, we can see that there's a lot of duplicated code. So that's something you could pull out to like an anonymous function, for example. Okay, and then we essentially want to check, so if bytes is not equal to 0, and this is really where we start to become more of a knockoff, because I'm going to change the output of this ever so slightly, so it's just a little bit more apparent as to what we are printing. That way, if you don't know the commands off the top of your head, or the flags off the top of your head, you can see at least what you're printing. So in our case, we're printing bytes. If words not equal to 0, printf, oops, sorry, not bytes, words. Words, lines not equal to 0. And then our last one would be characters, right? Oops, sorry, if characters not equal to 0, format.printf characters %d, there we go, characters. Okay, this should be close. However, we're missing one of our requirements. And that requirement is this one right here, the default option. So if no options are provided, which is the equivalent to -C, -L, and -W. So we have a couple options. Let's take a look at the Go flags package and see if we have a way to determine if flags are provided at all. I don't think we do, but it wouldn't hurt to check. Okay, parsed maybe? Whether they have been parsed? Nope. Visit all. I don't think we're gonna have much help here, and that's okay. Returns all the non-flag command line arguments. Oh, that's actually really nice. We could probably use that instead of our length check as well on 10 lines up. Okay, so I don't think we have any tools to help with that, so we can just do it the old-fashioned way with a couple different ifs. Or really, one if with a bunch of conditionals. So if C is equal to false and W is equal to false and L is equal to false and what's the last one? M is equal to false. Then we want to set, I believe it's C is equal to true, W is equal to true, and then L is equal to true. Okay, we haven't ran this yet. We probably should have written some tests, but here we are. So if I go run main.go, and then I've got downloads test.txt, okay, we get bytes. So something's wrong there, right? Because by default, we should have, okay, we should have all three. So we are getting counts, and I believe these are the correct counts. One of the nice things about the Code Challenges website is, yep, you can see here. Oh, it looks like it prints out the file name too. So that's something that we might want to do. I might not get caught up too much on the output formatting for the time being. But we need to print all three, right? So how are we getting into a scenario here? Oops, sorry, where we are only printing bytes. So we check bytes. Okay, so I believe the issue is we have an I/O reader being created behind the scenes for this file, and that I/O reader is keeping track of its position when we scan. So in our case, if we were to use this with any single flag, we would be good to go. But if we're using multiple flags, we run into an issue where we've already parsed the file. We've already read that file, and it's essentially treated like a stream where you can't necessarily rewind it. So we have a couple different options. We can load the entire file into memory, or we could open a new file for each scanner. I don't really like that idea. So maybe what we do is instead we use something like ioutil.readAll, and we pass in the file, and we get a byte array or an error. So this will be contents error, something like that. Contents declared not used, that's fine. And then here we do something like strings dot reader, and we pass in contents. Okay, ioutil.readAll is deprecated, so we can just use io.readAll. We'll need to add that up here. Okay, so I think what we ultimately need to do in this case would be to use a strings new reader and we pass in the byte array as a string to that new reader. So we can take this and we can paste that here, remove that here. And now if we take this approach, we're creating a new reader for each one of our scanners. So we should be able to run through them all. So let's give this another shot. Great, we can see that, oh, sorry, I have a print line. Yeah, let's go ahead and remove that print line. Had an extra print line in there. So now we have our default working, right? And this looks to be correct. So again, the output isn't one-to-one for what you would have with WC. So if we look at this right here, you can see that it's all printed on the same line, and it's spaced out with a couple spaces in between each one of them, and it has the file name at the end. Again, it's not a one-to-one for WC. You could call it a knockoff. I like this a little bit better because it's a little more helpful. But it's not as pluggable as this is. So maybe this is more true to the Unix philosophy, and that's okay. So yeah, if you followed along, one thing I'd challenge you to do is we have a lot of duplicated code. Here's a bunch of it on the screen. See if you could find a way to abstract this out and then run with this in a cleaner fashion. So I would suggest maybe actually everything on the screen right now could be refactored, all these ifs into one slice of code that maybe uses a function, an anonymous function, sorry. And then also the printing here is very, very similar. So maybe there's a way that you could refactor that to something a little cleaner. I'll leave you with that challenge and best of luck with it.